Let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by our friend Austin, who writes in, "Hey, John. I'm a huge fan of Ron Howard's Solo movie. I am too, as a matter of fact. I know it didn't do well, but I thought it was great. A lot of us have been asking and hoping for a sequel to the film and even got the hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen trending. With everything going on, how good are the chances that Lucasfilm gives the fans what we want and deliver a Solo 2? All right, thanks a lot for sending in that question, Austin. First thing I want to mention, always be careful about claiming what the fans want, because no matter who you are, you do not represent all the fans. And not all the fans want a Solo 2. A lot of them do. I would love a Solo 2, but not all the fans do, so let's be careful about ever claiming the fans want this. You don't speak for the fans. You only speak for a certain segment of fans, but let's get that out of the way. It is interesting that you wrote that in, because some new stuff has just kind of come out about Solo 2 that makes it look unlikely. Now look, the reality of it is this, is that Solo 2 was always highly unlikely once Solo came out and hit theaters. Before Solo came out and hit theaters, oh yeah, look, Disney isn't putting out a movie without the dreams of turning said movie into a franchise, right? You do a Solo because maybe you hope you might be able to do a Solo 2 and get a string of films out of this, right? Makes sense. The movie went through a lot of production hell. Obviously, they had to get rid of the directors when they were just about done the movie. They bring in Ron Howard. Ron Howard had to redo a whole ton of it. And listen, I think Ron Howard did a tremendous job, given the circumstances. He even still met the release date. It's crazy. What Ron Howard did was nothing short of Herculean in that regard. So there was all that. However, the film did not perform well, to say the least. It did not perform well. It lost money. The film lost money. Not truckloads of money, but still, it is a Star Wars-related film that lost money. And that does not stand over at Disney. So it made it look very unlikely that it could happen. Anyway, the screenwriter of the film, one of the screenwriters of Solo, Jon Kasdan, of course, Lawrence Kasdan, the guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back, Lawrence Kasdan's son, he was asked directly, hey, what's the progress on a Solo 2? And Jon Kasdan just said the following: I don't think anyone is pursuing a Solo sequel at the moment. This is the person on Twitter who sent him the question. I think a feature at this point would be a tough sell. And the Disney Plus Star Wars slate is really pretty packed. All shows I'm looking forward to. My work on Indiana Jones is long over because his script is done, but I'm excited there's forward movement. Again, to the most relevant part to this story, back at the front, I don't think anybody is pursuing a Solo sequel at this moment. I think a feature at this point would be a tough sell, and the Disney Plus Star Wars slate is already pretty full. That's, of course, coming from the screenwriter Jon Kasdan of Solo. Rob, sometimes in life, we get news that we were expecting, but it's still hard to get it. I don't think there was ever, as much as I enjoyed Solo, I think Solo was a really good, fun space adventure film. I enjoyed it a great deal. But as much as I enjoyed it, and as much as I would be very interested in a sequel, I think we all knew this wasn't going to get it. In a world where Disney and Lucasfilm can pursue anything they want, there really doesn't seem to be much motivation to go back to a franchise you did try and delivered your first money-losing proposition in your history. So I fully expected to hear at some point, no Solo 2 is happening. It still kind of sucks to hear, I acknowledge that. But Rob, despite all this, what do you think about this kind of declaration from Jon Kasdan that it doesn't look we're going to get one? Are you surprised at all by that? And what do you think the future chances are for a Solo 2 ever happening?
Well, I think it's unfortunate in a way because I thought this movie was definitely respectable. A respectable entry. I enjoyed it. I liked the characters. I thought it was a fun movie. And while it's, maybe it wasn't a 4-star film, I definitely give it a solid 3 stars, maybe a B+. And I liked it. And whenever I revisit it, I enjoy it. And it's unfortunate. But the fact is, John, as we always say, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And it really comes down to money. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to look at the box office, and whether they had to retool the movie and reshoot a majority of the film doesn't matter. All that matters is what did this movie do at the box office? And this movie just didn't justify making a sequel, which is too bad. And as much as I would have liked to have seen another adventure, maybe they could have made Han Solo at Star's End, or Orlando Calrissian and the Mind Harp of Sharu. Who knows? They've got those books. I don't understand why they don't go back and adapt some books, but what can you say? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen because of the money. That's just the way the business works.
If you were in charge of Disney right now, do you pull the trigger on it yourself, or does your enjoyment of the franchise outweigh? Here's a better question: with the response to Solo, do you think there is a chance that a second film could do better financially than the first one? Or do you see that even if it is better, the margin of difference would be so nominal it doesn't make any sense anyway? Like, what's your approach to that?
Well, here's the thing. Looking at what Disney's able to do with their stagecraft technology, think about it. An episode of The Mandalorian, I think that I read in an article, it's like $15 million an episode. All right, for a half an hour episode. So that's $60 million for 2 hours. Now, why does a Star Wars movie now have to cost $150 to $200 million? Every time they make another Star Wars movie, there's more assets. They're creating more props. They've got the Millennium Falcon cockpit, obviously. They've got so many costumes. They've got so much. And I think this idea that a Star Wars movie needs to cost $150 to $200 million or $200 million plus is kind of wrong-headed. Why not try and make a Star Wars movie for $80 million, $80 million or $100 million? Use your stagecraft technology, use that tech for The Mandalorian, and make a Star Wars movie, a theatrical Star Wars movie that you make for half the price, and see if you could do another Solo movie. Because if you could do that, and with all of these franchises, it's so crazy to me that Star Wars, when you think about it, the original was an independent movie, basically. I mean, I know Fox helped finance it, true, but it was not made for a ton of money. And it's almost like Hollywood has forgotten that you can go make these effects-heavy movies, but bring more of an indie filmmaking sensibility to them. And if you could pull off a Star Wars movie for $80 million and release it theatrically and make $500 million, or let's go look at Solo's box office. How could you, if you could make $400 million, let's say Solo I know it made just shy of that, but if you could make a Solo movie that could make $400 million, how would you have to make it viable as a theatrical feature? Well, you'd have to make it for, like, say, 70 or 80 million bucks. And if you did that and you spend another, say, 80 million on marketing, you might be able to pull that off and actually not just break even, but make a tidy profit. It goes on to Disney Plus. You release it theatrically worldwide. And I think if you had a great indie filmmaker or something utilizing the technology that they're pioneering on The Mandalorian, why should a Star Wars movie have to cost as much as they've been costing? And I think that there's nobody thinking in those kind of terms. A Star Trek movie should not cost $200 million. Just like a Star Wars movie does.
Advanced, heavy visual effects. They spent, what, $30 or $40 million to make that movie. When you've got Invisible Man costing $7 million to make. They just need to get a grip on things. I will say, though, however, this, Rob, about, Mandalorian costing, because of the stagecraft technology, which is insanely good, being like 15 million episode. You do also have to keep this in mind. I haven't done the math. I'm going to take a guess. Like 70% of Mandalorian is Mandalorian walking by himself on a flat desert. I mean,
it's true.
It's very, or alone in a city street or in a forest. Like they made it in such a way that it was very, from an environment point of view, it was a very simple story to tell. But I don't think that undermines your point about how, look, if they made Solo for $100 million, it would have been profitable. It would have been profitable if they made it for $100 million. Now granted, they basically had to make the movie twice. So, I mean, they were screwed from the beginning. But I don't know. It raises a lot of questions. Guys, the question here is, well, no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I really do think that the people that are making these movies, that there's now this process that the studios have put in place that they can't. With Neil Blomkamp, he was an effects guy, so he understood how to make District 9. The problem is the people that are making these movies, even the directors, as talented as they are, they're used to now working in a certain methodology, a certain way, and the studios are set up to making movies a certain way. And I think that there's a way to do it differently where you can keep these costs far lower. It's just you have to have a team of people that understand how to do it. And I don't know if the studios are looking into that. And I think that they should, because remember, character and story, John, goes a long way. You know, if you're going to, like that chase in the beginning of Solo, when they're going through the streets of Corellia, you know, and when Solo steals that speeder, think about how that chase, every shot's this gigantic effect shot. Well, if you shoot things differently, and I think one of the things about the stagecraft technology is it forces people to look at a production methodology that's a little different, where everything is not as big and as expansive as they are making it. You could, $100 million is a lot of money. They should try making a more of an indie-minded Star Wars or Star Trek movie, release it theatrically, and see what they could do. Because if you have talented people that understand how to shoot movies and combine effects and do it cheaply, like Neil Blomkamp did, or Gareth Evans, I mean that didn't work, Edwards, that didn't work out as well on Rogue One. But if you go back and you look at his movie Monsters, which is how he got all of his jobs to begin with, he got Godzilla and Rogue One because of that. You could make movies that don't have to cost as much as they do. They could be half of what they are. And if you concentrate on characters and story, people will go.
All right, guys, the question here for you is this. What do you make of Jon Kasdan come out and saying, yeah, don't hold your breath for Solo 2? I mean, for a lot of us, it was, yeah, that was obvious. But there are a lot of people out there that were really holding out hope they would. What do you think? Do you think maybe at some point we might get one anyway? Or is there just too much stuff to do and they're just going to move on from it? Does this give them an object lesson about their spending and all that kind of stuff? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.